carried a couple up, plus other bits and pieces of climbing gear every time. So 50, 60 pounds, reasonably heavy, and very good for getting fit for the later escapades on the Icecap.
It wasn't that bad, Gordon.
No, I remember you and I actually discussing vehemently something one day, and we were carrying a load, and we sort of were so busy talking we got to the top before we even realised it.
That shows it.
Yeah, right. It certainly, something does happen when you get older, yes. But,
something.
Not altogether good, but what the hell, you get there whether you want to or not.
We were calling this the Zimmer frame trip.
We're close. Somewhere around here. It's either there, or it's there. Go over and have a look at it.
What do you think we're looking at there?
I'm actually not sure, I have to say. It all looks a bit bloody strange to me. Certainly we're into a different valley or glacial system than we were in what we went up. We didn't climb those mountains. So we should be further over there. And maybe if we get to the top of this, we can get over to the old camp.
Yeah, because I knew we were too far this way because I remember being able to see the bottom of the lake from Heim. Yeah, I think that the camp, the old Heim's camp, our camp 2 was down there. The glacier's gone back maybe 30 metres, dropped down 30 metres, and that plus a bit more snow, which it would have been when we were here earlier in the season, would give you level access onto the glacier.
Yeah. There's certainly far more slots up in this area of the glacier, isn't
Yeah,
there?
well, it was never a problem through here.
No.
I didn't remember it being so steep, but then we were young and fit, and we would just shoot up there. I don't think we thought anything of going up there, really, did we? 2 pins, I'd go down there and follow our old route back.
Corresponded exactly with the photograph from
of Heim,
1940,
yeah.
And you know, and here we were 29 years later, the first people who'd been here since 1940.
And look, there's Heim's pegs, old wooden pegs, still in the ground.
I can remember one nasty storm here. Didn't we get very wet? Quite close right at the beginning.
Yeah,
Fence blew down and so on. I think we added to the wall.
Remember there's that sequence of us standing on that, just up there in the howling wind, looking with a Gouda in the background with flying scud. Well, I remember we had to pee sideways because if you peed downwind, you do a lot of eddies created by the human body.
We had some very warm days here.
Sun-drenched, or sun-warmed waters. Yeah.
And we had running water here too, which was a consideration.
We had the hot showers over on the rocks.
Oh, that's right, the secret of Heim.
Barnhouse, really.
But I'm just surprised how big this area is, because that distance we've been today, I would never have believed possible. I thought that this was basically the edge of the glacier and that was it.
Yeah.
And I wonder why somehow that we didn't come the other way after all.
You mean?
Come the way we went today.
I think it pretty well fell into place, didn't it?
Yeah, the route served us well.
Yeah, and it brought us to here. I think that this was a better place to start from because we could, in those days, we could carry the stuff on our skis. You know, we could start skiing from here.
It was over this glacier that the route to the ice cap
would be found.
This was much more efficient carrying weight when you were on skis and you had the weight on the back.
Yeah,
as long as
right.
you could actually stand upright. We were always carrying heavy packs, sometimes between 60 and 70 pounds. And with this sort of weight on your back, you just can't ski properly. And if ever your skins slip on the snow, you've got the devil's own job trying to save your balance. And if you should fall over, trying to get back up onto your feet again is very difficult and requires a tremendous amount of effort.
It was decided to dig 2 snow caves on the 7,000-foot pass found by the reconnaissance party. A snow cave can't be blown away. "10 hours' work for 1 cave, made urgent by fading light and snow flurries swirling over the exposed ridge."
We were living actually inside a glacier, and you forgot about this most of the time. But every now and again, you'd be lying in your bunk, and there'd be a bump or a jerk, and it would be a big piece of ice moving somewhere.
As other expeditions found during 50 years of attempts to penetrate the ice cap, the unpredictable Patagonian weather was a major obstacle to mountaineering activity.
There's something that gives you a degree of hope that it will get better, so you keep on trucking through this bad stuff for those 1 or 2 good days, when it can be really, really glorious just moving up through the snow, through the rocks. But what drives you? No one knows. It's something built into your genes. Maybe something better not to know you've got. Yeah.
I think the reason I climb is because the mountains are beautiful, and you can't, just looking at them is not enough. You've got to be involved with them more closely than just looking at them. And the only way I can think of is to photograph them or climb them, or both.
Last time we went out on limbs, we took ourselves out to exposed and distant part of that ice cap. And we didn't know how we were going to get back. We could have gotten caught in storms out there. In fact, we did, but we generally had enough food to sort of last the distance. Those were positions of real risk, and no wonder we were bloody anxious.
18 miles to the north and 8,000 feet above the ice cap was one of the major objectives. 13,000 foot Monte San Valentin, highest peak in Patagonia.
On the night before a climb, I definitely feel very tense, and it's quite often difficult to sleep. In the case of the expedition, years of preparation lie behind this moment. We watched the sunset until late, and then lay unable to sleep until midnight, when Dave announced that the weather was still clear but perhaps wouldn't hold for long, so the attempt was on.
I think that Monte San Valentin was certainly the hardest climb, inasmuch as it had the highest vertical distance between the camp and the summit, and the weather they encountered.
With filming and summit formalities cut short, a rapid descent began in the now familiar regime of wind and freezing cloud.
I think the most important peak And one of the most beautiful peaks in the area was this peak that we called Tare Tobler. Climbing a mountain, I'm always a little worried. I'm always worried of going up it, and when I get to the top, it's normally with a sense of relief that thank goodness I've got here now to get off this thing. You might ask how you can actually equate this sort of sense of concern or the sense of worry, but well, people enjoy their job, but they still get ulcers about it.
Of course, youth, and I don't think we're any exceptions, always feel that they are absolutely immortal and that nothing can sort of happen to them, and indeed it didn't. The idea of accidents in the mountains was a little foreign to us, which is a strange thing to say because, in fact, we had one of the early members of the team killed on Mount Tasman several years before we left, and it also resulted in the delay of the whole venture by a year. The idea of mountains and death should not have been foreign to us, but it certainly didn't enter into any of our thinking or any of our calculations. Looking back at some of the photographs of the climbs, I'm amazed today at the length of rope we were running out. I'm amazed at some of what might be considered risk, but it was clear to me in retrospect that we were not only physically but also mentally very fit. At 60, we're perhaps a little more conscious of the risk, and it may be in some paradoxical manner we've also got more to live for as we've got a shorter time to do it. But I think fundamentally there's relatively little desire to even contemplate doing the sorts of climbs that we did 40 years ago.
I don't think reaching the top of the mountain gives one a feeling of conquest, because it's rather hard to have a feeling of having conquered a pile of rock and ice and snow. More, it's a feeling of having perhaps conquered something in yourself. The mountain is entirely unaffected by your presence, therefore one can hardly say that one's affected the mountain in any way.
I think that is perhaps also putting the mountains and mountaineering into some sort of perspective. It clearly is relatively frivolous in the great scheme of things, and it's not the be-all and end-all of life.
Something sort of wild and beautiful about mountains with just rock and snow, but there's also something rather sterile about them. And when you go back into the bush, it's like going back to life.
I loved mountaineering. I loved that time that we were up on the mountains, but for my money, on this trip, we've been able to just enjoy the bush, been able to enjoy the flowers, still discovering things, and I enjoy the life that's around us.
You like more wine? Please, Bob, this for you, all for you.
Más que back, señor. A los montañeros se van, se van, se van, se van.
Se van al monte a hacer sus escaladas, dejando a la morena, a la que lo miraba. Se van al monte a hacer sus escaladas, dejando a la morena, a la que lo miraba. Me mira y me remira, sí, 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 con gran amor. venire in Maria, si con gran amor.
40 years on, when afar and asunder, parted are those who are singing today.
3, 2, 1.
40 years on, when afar and asunder, parted are those who are singing. What happened, Dave's laughing at bloody Launder.
I was just thinking 40 years ago if you'd told us we were going to sit around a bracket fire singing 40 years on.
We'd have never let you make the first film.
Yeah, must be. There's something in that stroke, I think.
We're mates, and I hope we're mates when we die. And I hope we all go to each other's funerals and sing 40 years on.